What is beyond the multiverse?
So, okay. All right. So this is in a way, this is near and dear to my heart. So, I'll relay the first time this occurred for me. It was a very long time ago, and I was really still a kid. So I was through an altered state, or the correct state of consciousness. I was able to sort of completely let go, and it's almost like I was being put on an elevator, so to speak. And I just kind of went up through everything, and it's like as if everything was made of glass. I was able to experience this frequency. And then I went up this frequency. And then eventually I pierced through what I call the membrane of the 12th full dimension. And it was then at that point where I was in, I guess we'll call it uncreated source or pure source. And there were two enormous sort of spheres, or they appeared to me as spheres. Maybe that was just my interpretation of it. But they were enormous. They were gigantic, and they were a bit far away, if that makes sense. So I let myself go to them, and as I encountered them, I was able to interact a direct, intelligent conversation with them. And as it turns out, they are not part of this God, but they are caught within God's gravitational force as a way to explain it. And so I was absolutely fascinated by this, because first off, that they said they weren't part of God, but yet they were inside of God. And so I wanted to understand what that really meant. And that's when I became aware of what the Hindu masters call the absolute, or the all there is. Now, the absolute or the all there is just that. It is all there is. And you could think of it as the totality of all existence. And it's a being. So in other words, it became self-aware and self-conscious on its own. It's not a creation. It is existence itself. So all of existence is conscious on some level, and some aspects of consciousness is super conscious, if you want to look at it that way. But this absolute, or this all there is, became aware of itself. It became self-aware, and it realized that it was everything in every single direction, up, down, left, right, frequentially, dimensionally. It just started to become aware that it was everything. And by the way, it noticed that it was divided into 12 parts, that it somehow was made up of 12 components. And so this is the very beginning of its understanding of becoming self-aware, of existence itself becoming self-aware, which happened a very, very, very long time ago from a linear perspective. So these two huge entities started explaining this to me when I connected with them. They were explaining that they were actually part of the original conscious awakening of the Absolute. And in this conscious awakening of the Absolute, it decided to make 12 creations in order for it to understand itself, to send a creation of itself in this direction, send a creation of itself in that direction, because it didn't know anything about itself, Jeff. Down there, down. It's like we don't know anything about our foot, so we send a drone down our leg into our foot to understand what's actually inside our foot, as an analogy. And so these two beings were part of that sort of original experimentation of creating these 12 other gods, or these 12 other source entities for this absolute, for this all there is to understand itself and explore itself. And it's part of those original energies that simply got caught up in the gravitational force of our God, of our source entity. And they're not the source entity, our God, in and of itself, but they're just caught there. And these entities started explaining this to me. And as I could resonate with it and actually become part of this consciousness, not just intellectually, but actually embody what was happening as they relayed it to me. In a sense, it almost allowed me to then continue to leave pure God, if you will. We're now way outside of the multiversal structure. And then we come into these areas where it's the exact same thing. It's now you run into a whole nother source entity or God. And it's created its own environment. And some of those environments are absolutely nothing like this multiversal structure. But it's an environment nonetheless. And these environments have creations within them, just like our multiverse has creations within creations within creations within creations. Same with these other source entities or gods, they have environments that have creations within creations within creations of them. And what I was able to experience is that there are 12 of these, and we're coming back to that magic number of 12, because as I said, the absolute, or the all there is, when it became self-aware, it realized that it was divided into 12. So it created 12 drones, or 12 source entities, or 12 gods, to explore the various regions of itself that it had no knowledge, no tangible understanding of itself whatsoever. And this absolute, this all there is only just beginning, believe it or not, is only just beginning to understand the very nature of itself, because it is all of existence. And we are housed, at this moment, we are housed within one of those source entities, or one of those gods, within its creation, which is the multiversal structure. And these 12 other gods, Jeff, in the Bible refers to the Elohim. The Elohim, which means gods plural. So the Elohim are the true source entities. They are the true co-creators. And that's what the Bible is actually referring to, is that these 12 other gods and aspects of these 12 other source entities, or 12 other gods, are interested in the creations of its co-workers, of its other gods. So it sends pieces of itself into these other source entities' creations in order to experience and learn, and also to help each one of these other source entities with their experimentation, with their creation, all at the behest of the absolute, in order to understand itself in totality. That is the only purpose. Everything comes from love and wisdom. Everything is a direct result of love and wisdom. It's all designed for us to know ourselves in totality, which is actually impossible. So it's a never-ending journey of self-discovery. There are such things as self-mastery, for sure. That does exist, and certain beings have been able to achieve levels of self-mastery. But the multiverse and everything is really just a multi-frequential, multi-dimensional hall of mirrors to reflect back our own level of consciousness in order to understand ourselves. And so our mind, even our human mind, has a blueprint. Everyone's does. Has a blueprint of the entire multiverse, and we simply populate it with our experiences and perceptions. And then as we populate it, it's kind of like those dolls within a doll, within a doll, within a doll, which also works very similar to a holographic nature. As we populate our blueprint, that affects what that's within, and what that is within affects what that's within, and so on and so on and so on. So as RJ experiences these things, my higher self is experiencing these things, Source is experiencing these things, the other source entities are experiencing these things, and the Absolute, who directed all this, who created all this, is experiencing these things. So it's never ending, and it's so far beyond this sort of interpretation that I'm trying to give by using words. These things are so far beyond anything that I could really capture, which is why I try to use analogies and try to give it make it some sense in a logical fashion. But these states of consciousness, these frequencies, these dimensions, we are part of these things, and they're meant to be experienced for us to truly understand what life actually is.